Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the session we're going to dedicate to authentication and authorization. Somebody was asking me why not also accounting, and well, maybe the reason is that we are an academic network and we are not charging anybody for that, for anything. Our idea with this session is, you know, those of you who have been in the Torrena conference for the last few years, I'm sure you have been attending other sessions of authentication authorization with different names, but with the same purpose, or focusing in the same technologies. In this opportunity, what we have tried to do is look at with a practical view on the flourishing of systems dedicated to AA in the academic world. Well, our first presenter is Nicole Harris from the JISC, where she's a program manager, and is in development. Is responsible for development of middleware, research, and support for open source projects. And she's going to present us something that is, since JISC has been operating the first really deployed system for AA in an academic network. I think that they have a very mature user community, a very mature deployment principles, and a very mature ideas on how the system will evolve in the future. So please.
Okay, thanks you all for coming. I'm going to talk today about middleware and specifically AA, authentication and authorization within the JISC environment. To start with the overview, I thought I'd better talk a bit about what the JISC environment means to us. And we have various different understandings of that. We support a variety of different user communities doing a variety of different work, and this encompasses some of that information. We have a technical architecture called the JISC information environment, which was primarily put together to support digital libraries. We also have an e-learning technical framework. We have work going on in the grid and virtual research environments, and we also have what we call the common information environment across the UK. So there's obviously a lot of different work going on. Middleware goes across all of these, and we have to find some way and some commonality across all of these areas. I'm then going to talk very briefly about what we've already done to support access management and what we're planning. And finally, I just want to say why we're doing this and why we're doing it now. So to start off, for quite some time we've had what we call the information environment architecture, and this is the diagrammatic representation of that. It's basically a framework and a set of standards that we expect projects to be able to use within their institutions. There's been a lot of work in all of these different areas. If you look down the left-hand side, you'll see at the very top the authentication and authorization, alongside an awful lot of other services which we called shared infrastructure. In that section, the authentication and authorization is the most developed service we have, and is currently run for us by Athens. We also now have what we call the e-learning technical framework, which is in many ways just a different way of looking at many of those different areas. They present it like this. We have common services at the bottom, again, authentication and authorization appearing in those boxes. We also have a need to support what we call our e-research community, people working on the grid, people doing big e-science. And to be quite frank, this is what I came up with at the moment, because we don't have a determined architecture to support them at the moment. There's an awful lot of work going on in the grid, but there's no definite architecture, nothing stable. We're also doing some work in what we call the virtual research environment, but again, nothing is stabilised, so it stays as a question mark in my presentation at the moment. And finally, we have a need to work outside of the education sector within the UK. So we're also part of a much wider UK public sector partnership, which includes JISC, museums, galleries, public libraries. The British Library has to be there, our National Health Service, and also the eScience Core programme in the UK. It's a very, very big agenda going on there. But again, access management has to be an important part of that work. The overall aim of the Common Information Environment, as you see, is to provide consistent access for the UK public. It's a big aim, and it's a difficult thing to do. So, what are we currently doing to support all of these different things in the UK? Well, as was already mentioned, we're very lucky. We've already had an access management system in place serving the UK for some time, which goes under the name of Athens. It is a username password-based system, and it mainly, though not exclusively, is licensed through a variety of JISC consortium deals. We have over 2 million current usernames, probably going up every single day in there. It's essentially a centralised database, although that's distributed for security, using username and password, and the actual maintenance of the users within that is devolved back to all of UK HE institutions and many UK FE institutions. So it's a very big service, and it's been a big success story within the UK to date. Some more statistics. About 500 HE and FE institutions use the Athens service, and there are over 200 licensed resources controlled via that system. And most importantly for us, a very high proportion of the major academic publishers that are important within the UK implement and use Athens. So it's been a huge success story for us, and we're very pleased with what it's done. It doesn't serve the entire community as well. The eScience people do things a little bit differently. So we also have the eScience Certificate Authority. It's part of the Grid Support Centre. It's based on the OpenCA software, although it's been slightly modified locally. Its verifications carried out by trusted RAs around the community. And the current scale of operation is much, much smaller. It's only a few hundred certificates per year. And they have a major problem at the moment because this service simply won't scale in its current environment. They need something better. They need something more robust. We haven't stayed still, though. We haven't just accepted that and said that's what we're doing now. We're constantly developing, constantly doing research. And one of the major pieces of research we've done recently is what we've called the AAA programme, so the Authentication, Authorisation and Accounting programme. Started in July 2002 with an open call. And this is what we were asking for, and I'll quote it, to undertake a number of projects designed to give the UK experience of the emerging technologies in the authentication and authorisation area based on open, vendor-independent standards. So that's what we were asking for. We just wanted to know how all these different things worked. And for us, it was essentially an audit of all of these technologies as we look towards the future. To give you a very brief overview of the technologies we investigated, there's a list, and I don't think it will be a big surprise to anyone to see any of the names there on the list. It was also supported by a study of institutional role types and some very detailed policy studies to give us more background information. So we tried to cover all of the things that were important to us at the time and all of the different horses that we might be able to back over time. But now we're at a stage where we can look towards moving forward. What the AAA programme also did for us was give us a very good understanding of what our users wanted and what they were demanding, not just now, but in 4 to 6 years' time. And this is what they came up with for us. They told us a next generation AAA infrastructure must support all of these scenarios. So they wanted something that supported internal applications as well as use between organisations. So things like exam databases. They wanted a system which could help them access control those. They wanted to continue having management of access to third-party digital library type resources, so as we have now with the Athens service. They were also absolutely interested in inter-institutional use in 2 different ways, in terms of stable long-term resource sharing in what we call the e-learning scenario, so people being able to access each other's virtual learning environments, for example. They were also interested in something that was far more ad hoc, and this really came from our e-researchers, but is important across all the different communities. So they're talking about virtual organisations, dynamic sharing of information on very short time scales. They want us to support all of those different scenarios. And at the moment, Athens in its current form does not support this. So we need to look forward and we need to take technology forward. Luckily, we just got a whole bunch of new money, so we can take this forward. So at the moment, we're planning 2 major development programs, the first of which is called Core Middleware Technology Development. The call went out earlier on this year, and we've funded 16 projects from a variety of different backgrounds across the UK, and they're including HE and FE institutions, commercial publishers, other services which currently operate in our environment. So it's quite large scale across the UK. The projects are going to run from April 2004 to March 2007. And their remit is to investigate the development of middleware technology within key areas. We're really asking them to say, where are the problem areas at the moment? Where is it not right? Can you put these right for us? Where do we need more investigation? And very briefly, they fall into these categories. So we've got a whole bunch of people looking at grid development. Can certain technologies work in the grid area? Permis is involved as Permis has shown itself to be a very important tool within the UK, but it still needs taking forward, it still needs developing. So we've got a lot of people who are doing development work around Permis. Like most countries, we have an awful lot of portals at the moment. People are investigating how we can embed access management technologies into these portals. And interinstitutional collaborations, and also shibboleth in non-university environments. I should say that overall in these projects, we are looking for people to mainly be focusing on shibboleth as the core technology that they implement. We also got a special grant which is enabling us to take our infrastructure much further forward than we've had the opportunity to do at the moment. And the main aim of this tranche of money is to build a working shibboleth infrastructure within the UK. Note that I only say that I want it to be working, I didn't say I want everyone to be using it at the moment. Within this programme, we're looking to build that infrastructure. We're also looking to shibbolise, I think is the correct word, all of the JISC resources that we currently have available, so those that are managed by our services. We also want to provide a range of central services, including, for those of you that know shibboleth well, the Where Are You From service, support for targets, support for origins, and most importantly, an awful lot of development surrounding policy, so we get our policy management right from the word go. We'll be putting out a call for early adopters in both institutions and among publishers to help get them off the ground. And most importantly for us, with the help of Athens, well, mostly developed by Athens, we'll be building an Athens gateway so that both of our access management systems can work together. What that means is that an Athens authenticated user will be able to access a shibboleth protected resource, and a shibboleth authenticated user will be able to access an Athens protected resource. This has got to be the most important thing for us in terms of getting this new service up and running. So just to finish off, why this and why now? It's very easy to say that we've got a working infrastructure in the UK. So why exactly do we want to go shibboleth, and why are we doing it right now? Most importantly, we are now confident that there is a clearly identified need for new services from our community. We know they want all of those scenarios supported, and we know they want it done within the next couple of years. There's been very good international take-up of shibboleth, and we can learn and share with a range of different countries, not just the US, such as the development work going on at Switch. It's just a wonderful resource there for us. The shibboleth trials within the UK and within the AAA programme have been very successful, and they have proven that shibboleth can meet our requirements in the short term and in the long term. There is an increasing interest from the publishers. It's got to be the most important thing. If publishers don't take up shibboleth, it's not going to get us anywhere. So that's been very encouraging for us. And finally, it gives us a chance to be open, to make sure that we're embracing all of the open standards that we keep on recommending to our community. It's very important that we're supporting that as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicole. Do you have any questions, comments, remarks? Well, nobody else has anything else to say. I would like to ask you a couple of things. When you say shibbolething the JISC resources, you're talking about putting shibboleth in front, making the JISC resources some sort of shibboleth targets, or?
Making all of the JISC resources that we currently have and we currently provide to the community shibboleth targets. So.
Okay. And the other question is about the wave, because you're talking about the wave, and it's something that I've been several times going wrong in my mind about, well, my feeling is that you can make a wave work in a more or less controlled environment, in a national network. Do you have any idea of international wave in a way of locating services across boundaries?
I think it's something we can look forward to in the future. At the moment, Athens already operates something very similar to the WAF for us, which supports the UK, called the Home Domain Discovery Service. So for us, our first effort will be making sure we've got something like that operating within the UK. Operating at an international level, well, that's a challenge for all of us, I think, and a challenge that is being looked at, but I don't think the answers are there yet.
Anything else? Just your last opportunity? No? Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Well, next speaker is officially named José Antonio Montenegro, but he's got a nickname for which all of us who know him used to name him, and please name him that way. It's Monte, simply. And, well, he's a research student. He's on the preparing his PhD thesis at the University of Malaga, and he's working on privilege management, PKIs, authorization schemas, and all the like, and he's going to present a survey that they have made on the big number of different authorization authentication infrastructure and proposals that have been flourishing in the last years, proposing a taxonomy that I guess would help us in finding a way of making all of them work each other. Please, Monte.
Thank you, Diego. First, I'm sorry for my poor English and try to explain all the slides, but if you need more information about the slide, please send an email. Probably I read English better than the speaking English. Okay, my name is José Antonio Montenegro. I'm a co-author of this work. The title is on the taxonomy of authentication and authorization solution, exploring open problems. The other authors are Javier López, this is my director of thesis, and Roel Obliger and Gunther Prenner. Okay, this is the brief of the work. The idea of this work is to evaluate the authentication and authorization systems. Therefore, it's necessary to take the topic of each solution and later make a taxonomy to improve them or make a new one. The first slide is about the taxonomy and a brief introduction in authentication and authorization problem. And finally, we explain a conclusion about this taxonomy. This conclusion is a feedback to build our own implementation from the PMI, and another idea is BAI. This is the biometric and authorization infrastructure. Okay, this is a big, famous cartoon presented in the New Yorker journal. It's about the problem in internet authentication. And they say, internet, a dog says to another dog, on internet, nobody knows you're a dog. Probably everybody say, oh, that is not actually a problem in internet because it's a lot of solution in authentication. But probably if you use the chat and you use another name that it's the real. Okay, but if you remember that authentication it's only a basic service. If you need to implement a more complex service like no repudiation, you must use a good solution of authentication. But this is the problem. You have to improve the authentication solution. Sorry. And if you think about the authentication problem is resolved, think about authorization. Now you make an assumption and say, everybody knows you are ad hoc, but what is ad hoc allowed to do in a real network? Okay, this is another problem with actually in internet. This is only the basic problem. You need to resolve this problem to go another complex problem. Okay, you ask yourself, why a taxonomy now? The idea of the taxonomy is to obtain a feedback of each solution. When I began to study my PhD thesis and collect a lot of paper about authentication and authorization, I think about actual solution continually use the traditional idea in different scenarios. In this slide, we can see two examples. For example, Kerberos and Sesame. Kerbero born in 1988, and Microsoft adopted it in 2000. Microsoft used Kerbero later to authenticate different hosts in the Microsoft network. And this attempt takes approximately 12 years later. Okay? And in the case of Sesame used privileged attribute certificate. This is a type of certificate that is very similar to attribute certificate published by E2T. This type of certificate, X500 now, is using today, or 8 years later than Sesame. And Sesame used back in 1886. Okay, the question is about this technology. Are we reinventing the wheel? Maybe. The conclusion is maybe we should analyze previous solution before developing a new one. Or, in instance, reuse a previous one solution. Well, I want to introduce the taxonomy. The idea is to take all the topic of the taxonomy, and the first step is to analyze the common technology of each solution. For example, the mechanism to establish sign-on, the mechanism to disable sign-on or instant sign-out. This is a lot of problem with this technology in each proposal because there is a lot of flaw in the security flaw in sign-out process. Another important mechanism is trust relation, and the last one is very important because you have to communicate authentication and authorization infrastructure, and you have to improve the functionality of a structure to store and transport credential and the protocol to carry this credential. And finally, this is an important point about asymmetric cryptography, because all the solutions now use asymmetric cryptography. But this is an important point because actual environment like a VQ's system don't support this cryptography, and they use only symmetric cryptography. And another step to make the taxonomy is the actors that are present in the solution analysis. For example, all the proposal has client, resource provider, this is a stakeholder, authentication system, and the authentication system. Okay, when I look all the paper about authentication and authorization, all has the same introduction. Okay, this is a solution to get authorization in distributed environment, but later you have to read a lot of sheet, and finally you obtain the real fundamental of the solution. For example, to get the proposal, each proposal, you have to go to the goal of proposal, role of actors involved, element used to store and carry the authentication information, scheme operation, advantage, driveways, or well-known flash, and other features like difficult to use, shortcode, and running environment, etc. In Italy, we established 4 categories. The first one is general scope, another one is web scope, the first one is framework based, and the last one is authentication language and protocol. This one is out of the paper because due to the lack of space. Okay, then the first one is general scope solution. This category includes the solution that can be used in whatever authorization network scenario. The proposals are included in this scope is, for example, Kerberos that use symmetric cryptography. This is very important because you can use in whatever lab, whatever Palm element. And the other one is Sesame that use, is Sesame that is a proposal, a European proposal of Kerberos, American Kerberos. Later, another proposal is Permis, and this is based in E2 proposal. It is included in this category because it implements a specific model of E2 proposal that is the Rodel model. And the last one is Akenti that use 3 types of certificate, that is use condition certificate, identity certificate, and attribute certificate. In the paper, you can see a comparative with Permit that is made by Salford University. Another solution is web scope solution. This solution is a common issue that is enabled to sign on for access to multiple sites. But the problem that's the old solution, the web scope solution, that is these 3 points. Normally, there are weak password, and poor choosing password can be particularly problematic in a single sign-on environment. Another problem is internet development. When you have in the public site and the project cache and file the sign out, it's probably that make a hack section. And finally, another problem common to web scope solution is the weak cryptography. Two years ago, is different protocols are used in United States and Europe. Okay, the solution include in this category are PAPI and Sibole, that is well known in TNC. Microsoft.NET Passport, this is the most widely used solution because it's used in Microsoft environment, and this is included in the operating system and the Hotmail webmail. Liberty is a solution of Liberty Alliance that is not now implemented yet. And finally, another solution is a recent solution about a consortium with Microsoft IBM. This is the Web Service Federation language, or WS Federation. This is a directly competitor with .NET Passport, because we think about this is the competitor with Liberty, but we think that Passport not is sufficient. And the last one category of a system is a framework-based solution. This is X509 version 3. This is a PMI and PKI. This example of this solution is Permis, and it's very important an actual report of European technology standard. This is report show what is the problem with attribute certificate using in indeterminate environment. Another solution is PKI and SDSI. This is very important because introduce the expression and make a new point of view about certificate between linking information about user and public key. And finally, the last of this solution is ARCH. ARCH is an ITF group and make a lot of report about authentication, authorization, and accounting. Unfortunately, this project is stopped. Finish. Thank you. But it has a lot of report that you can take a lot of requirement about authorization and authentication. And accounting. And the last one is authorization language, authorization and authentication language and protocols. This is a single classification, and you can see XML-based language. For example, the most representative is SAML, and another language can be SPOC-P, and is well known in TNC, and the protocol specification is SOAP. In ETSI report, the first feedback say that it's a manifold dedicated to implementing language, authorization, notification language. And I think about, and the ETSI report about, it's better to make effort to implement infrastructure that make all the effort to implement authorization, notification language. Okay, we obtained a numerous conclusions about this work, and for example, different solutions provide either authentication or authorization service, or both, although sometimes it's necessary to merge two different solutions to provide authentication and authorization infrastructure. This is necessary to implement, for example, a gateway to Athens or another one, for example, to Sibolet or to PAPI. And for implement this gateway, is very necessary to know how function the structure of authentication authorization. Another conclusion is the best solution are not the most used. This is the case of Kerberos. And wider solutions are not the best passport. This is the reason because Kerberos is born in 80, and his fame is reached in 2000 when Microsoft adopted it. And Passport is the well-used solution because it's included in operating system by Microsoft. Another conclusion is about complex problem must be resolved, such as delegation. This is another cartoon about delegation problem, and you can see in the cartoon how a father saying to a boy, the boy said to the man, "Tell your assistant is perfect." You can make a comparison that the father could be a user, the assistant could be a delegated user, and the toy is the token of authorization, authentication infrastructure, and the child is the authorization engine. Probably the boy or authorization engine decision is no, because it take the delegation chain and see that the toy not is it for the father, is for assistation user. Okay, another conclusion is about how to implement this delegation. Actually, there are numerous theoretical solutions, but no one implemented. Okay, analysis solution provides us the input to develop a new infrastructure. Our previous work is about to develop a PKI prototype. We developed this prototype to a Spanish bank in 2001, and now we make a station, and we have designed and developed a PMI prototype. It focuses on the PM delegation model, but it supports the other model, like a role-based model and access control model. The implementation has used open source libraries such as OpenSSL and GTK and OpenLDAP. And the main use of this implementation is to add attribute certificate support to OpenSSL. This is a view of the AA console, and you can see the main function in the left side, and you can use like use certificate, revoke certificate, and make configuration about PNI system. In the left side, you can see the function selected of the main menu. In this case, this is the Option configuration. You can include the attributes and the extension to use attribute certificate. In this case, you can include attributes and the rules, the strict rules of each attribute. And in the other one, you can use the extension. Later, the attribute that you include here, you can use in another menu and use certificate to make to a user. Another conclusion is about the basic to make AEI. Normally, all the people use user and password technology of POP3 or LDAP to make authentication service. And another one is PKI or Kerberos. Normally, you merge all solutions to obtain AEI. This is a sample of EAI based on PKI. You can merge PKI and PMI. You merge PKI identity certificate extension of PKI my database system with a store attribute of the user. Our implementation is the support for another proposal. Is to use biometrics by plus PMI, and you obtain PAAI, biometric authentication and authorization infrastructure. This is the base element in BAI. This is a slight modification of X509 certificate. This is on the left. This is the attribute certificate, and the entry holder has a sequence, and his entry object digit info. You can store there the biometric information. Okay, this is the creating process of the bug. A user take a photograph and make a hash of more significant bits of this image, and you store these digits inside of the certificate. Later, you can use the identity to compare it with biometric, and using steganography, you put it together the certificate obtained of each step. And finally, you get the back the identification and authorization certificate. And the last one is about the verification process of the back. The first step is when the user is in front of a CCTV, and CCTV gets a image of the user. Later, in the second step, with using the back and biometric techniques, you can see if the user identification of the user. And the final step is when you get the attribute certificate of the back. And later, in step 2 and 3, you get authentication and authorization information. Okay, thank you very much.
Any questions? Comments? Please. Wait a moment for the David.
Well, it's not actually a question, but it's a clarification for your presentation and to correct an error that was in one of your first slides about X509 attribute certificates, where you said that they hadn't appeared until 2004, which is actually this year. In fact, they appeared in 1997 in the X509 standard in 1997, which was only 1 year after that you have on the board there for Sesame. And that was the first definition of attribute certificates. And then in the 2001 standard, they had the definition of the entire PMI infrastructure.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I consider
It wasn't 8 years, which is the point you were making.
But I consider that that I am using now the attribute certificate. The specification of E2 is in 2001, but today I'm using attribute certificate. Probably it's 8 years because and permis is the only implementation of E2.
Okay.
Sorry? What slide? Sorry, what?
We're not the first.
First?
I guess. Not the first, but maybe the one you're talking about attribute certificates. No.
Yeah, you said it's 8 years later. I said 1997 was 1 year later when it was actually defined in X509.
Yeah.
It's not 8 years later, it was 1 year later. Yeah.
Okay.
But his basic point that wheels are being reinvented constantly is certainly undeniable. I'm sure you would agree, Dave.
I agree that they're always reinventing the wheel. What about XML?
There you go.
Okay, good. That's
Monta, what is your target user community for the BAAI? I mean, biometric devices and stuff are pretty expensive these days.
Yes, but it's only, So this is only a prototype because we are using the face recognition and a fingerprint because we are using in master thesis library, United States library, that make all the processor of biometric. And you only use webcam and later take the photograph to library and make all the process. I think about only to take a webcam is very cheap. I don't know, but I think it's very cheap. Probably in 10 years is a better cam resolution, but you can use this technology.
anything else? Okay, just that was also remark in the same way as David is that both Papi and Shibboleth are moving out of the web scope, so trying to span it a little bit further for, I guess, instant messaging, logging, grid connections, or whatever, but it's just... up to now, they are in the web scope. So
Okay.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much, Monte. Again. Well, next speaker is Willie Kingholz. Sorry, I tend to misspell his name. Willie is the responsible of the Switch AAA project, which is it's a real practical deployment of state-of-the-art AAI in a real situation in an academic network, and he's going to present us the results.
Okay, so welcome everybody to this presentation about rolling out Shibboleth to the Swiss academic community. The next two slides are just to show you briefly why this project was started about 3 years ago. So this was the situation without AAI or without Shibboleth. And, well, it still is for the most part the situation. Well known, of course, we have several institutions. We have a library in this example with many resources. And the resources do the authorization of the users as well as the whole user administration and the authentication. And this situation, of course, has a number of disadvantages, pretty obvious to most. The resources have to register users in a process which is certainly tedious for the resources and the students. The data that is acquired locally is outdated after some time, and it's not reliable. For the users, on the other hand, it's very uncomfortable because they have a different system how to log in at almost any resource they want to access. And in addition to that, they have a lot of passwords or other credentials they have to manage locally. Because interinstitutional access is so difficult to implement, it's often based on IP addresses, and of course there are many well-known disadvantages of that approach. And just in general, it's costly to implement interinstitutional access to electronic resources. So this is now what we like to achieve with our AI. Of course, all the disadvantages from the slide before have been disappeared here. And you see that the user administration and authentication now is on the left-hand side of this big AI cloud, which means it's very close to the place where the students and users are known. For instance, there where user administration is done. So we call these orange squares the home organizations. In Shibboleth terms, it's called origin. And it's just one point where the user data is managed and maintained, kept current. Okay, so that was the motivation for the project. This is an overview about the project planning and where we are staying now. So, as I mentioned, it started 3 years ago. It started actually with a study, an inter-university working group was built. Participants were members of Switch as well as from many universities across Switzerland. And this study just studied if it was feasible to implement an AI in Switzerland. And the result of this study was it was feasible. Several aspects had been studied, for instance, organizational aspects, legal aspects, technical aspects, financial aspects as well. And after that study, it was decided to continue with a pilot phase of the project, just to prove this feasibility and also to gain experience with technologies, several technologies. At the beginning, we evaluated actually 3 different technologies. So it was the PAPI system from our Spanish NREN, and then it was Shibboleth from Internet2, of course, and it was also Tequila, which was a development from the École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne, which means a university in Switzerland itself. And after some time, when we gained some experience with all these technologies, architecture evaluation was done. And the winner was Shibboleth, actually for a couple of reasons. We very much liked the architecture of Shibboleth. It seemed to us to be very clean, very future-proof. Another point was that the people from Internet 2 always are in contact with commercial service providers, for instance, providers of e-journals. And another reason was that Shibboleth is based on standards, for instance, SAML. And last but not least, there was a large user community or community who stood behind Shibboleth already at that point. So there were a couple of American universities who already used Shibboleth pilot-wise or test-wise, and there was also interest in Europe. So altogether, these reasons made Shibboleth the most future-proof system at that point in time. But it was not an easy decision. All these three systems were almost at the same level. But, however, ever since we have not regretted that decision, I think Shibboleth has even gained some momentum. Meanwhile, there is much more support from universities in the States, but also in Europe. And also the software versions that came out were much better than in the beginning. So we believe it was the right choice. The pilot phase actually ended end of January of this year, and then we began the implementation phase or rollout phase. We're now about in the middle of the first part of implementation. We want to have the final production infrastructure up and running by end of this month. And then we will have a window of about 3.5 months for the universities who already use Shibboleth for some applications to migrate to the production infrastructure, so that at the beginning of the winter term, the productive systems will be migrated and operational. And after that, we will, of course, continue to improve the production infrastructure. So this will be the implementation phase 2. Again, with the goal to put that into operation by the beginning of our next winter term, and so on. This is the current status from point of view of home organizations in Switzerland. So in Switzerland, we actually have 12 universities and 7 universities of applied sciences, and 5 of them have already Shibbolized their user directories. And it's more or less the 5 biggest ones. That's very favorable, of course, because from the total of about 220,000 users in Switzerland, about half of them now have a Shibboleth account, potentially can use Shibboleth. There are some more home organizations, just the Switch employees as well. And on the right lower center, there is the virtual home organization. It's operated by Switch. And it's just a container where other users who are not in the system at the other universities can be put in, so that resources can just Shibbolize, and that all users that use a resource are actually AAI users, which makes that much more easier, of course. I'd like to show you also 2 resources which are using now Shibboleth on a production level. They're both, these resources are projects from the Swiss Virtual Campus. The Swiss Virtual Campus was an initiative from Swiss government. They funded 50 projects in the area of e-learning, and in each of these projects, several universities across Switzerland had to participate. So, for these projects, of course, it is very obvious to use AI because it allows interinstitutional authentication and authorization. So, the two showcases we have today are two of these 50 projects from the Swiss Virtual Campus. The first one, it's called Do It. It's an e-learning resource, and it's in the area of dermatology. It's on one hand, it's e-learning content, and on the other hand, it's a database of dermatologic diseases. It's pictures from dermatology diseases, and these pictures, due to patient rights, cannot be made public. So there was a need to control access just to those people who need this resource for learning. And this was implemented by a pretty simple access rule at the resource. 4 attributes from the users had to be used. First one, the home organization of a user either has to be University of Zurich or University of Bern or University of Lausanne. The affiliation has to be a student. It's not open for staff. The study branch must be medicine, and the study level greater or equal than 20, which means the students are in the 3rd semester or higher. And as soon as this access rule is implemented, of course, the user management is getting very simple for this resource. They never have to do anything anymore with when the semester is relaunched, people are leaving, etc. It's just done at the home organizations. And we have today about 300 users across these 3 universities who use this system on a regular basis. The second showcase I'd like to present here is also a project from the Swiss Virtual Campus. It's called VITELS. Stands for Virtual Internet and Telecommunications Laboratory of Switzerland. That's a combination of e-learning content, which is running on a WebCT server, and it's also several modules are also part of this project, and these modules are the laboratories. For instance, you can configure routers over a web interface, which of course is a very good interactive learning experience. You can even reboot the routers over your web interface. And these modules, they run at several locations, are almost separate applications. And they all needed some authentication and authorization. And again, for this resource, it was very obvious to use AI. They make also quite extensively use of our virtual home org. It's about 200 users who use this system on a almost daily, weekly basis. Now, of course, we're not satisfied with that so far. So this is quite an ambitious goal. That's what we would like to see in about 2 years from now, which means we would like to see almost all home organizations be AI enabled, and we also would like to see plenty of resources in different areas, e-learning, but also others, be shibbolized. The white spots you see here and there are we accept just because it's the Alps. And in the north also some other hills. But as you see, we have very ambitious plans. Now, so far, we were operating the pilot or test infrastructure. What we're doing now, we're building the Switch AI Federation. It will bring the whole infrastructure to a higher level from several points of view, for instance, trust, security, reliability, but also data protection, for instance, policy issues. And some components of the Switch AI Federation we already have in place, and others we are just building now. So there are basically three groups of items that make up this federation. The one is standards, for instance, an attribute specification, also an agreement on which certificate authorities are accepted, and software versions, for instance. Next pillar is the legal framework to regulate issues like data protection, liability, and so on. And the third pillar is central AI services, which are provided by us, by Switch. Now I'd like to look into some details of our Switch AI Federation. One of them is the Ai Attribute Specification. Again, this was an inter-university working group that produced this attribute specification. It's a document, it's on our website, it's about, I don't know, a bit more than 10 pages, and it defines quite in detail the attributes, formats, and so on that can be exchanged between organizations. They can be grouped into personal attributes and group membership attributes. The group membership attributes are used for authorization. So at the personal attributes, we have, for instance, a unique identifier. That's an ID which is just unique all over the Switch AI Federation. It's also anonymous. It's impossible to figure out, for instance, the name or username out of this unique identifier. We have also surname and given name, and we have some optional attributes. That means if an organization has these attributes, that's fine. And if an organization hasn't these attributes, they still can participate in Switch AI. Examples: date of birth, gender, email, addresses, phone numbers, preferred language. And the group membership attributes, they are now used for authorization. For instance, the name of the home organization or the type of the home organization. A type can be, for instance, university or University of Applied Sciences, or it can be virtual home organization or other organization. For instance, Switch is another organization. The affiliation, there are several categories like student, staff, and faculty. And some optional attributes as well, for instance, the study branch, study level, staff category, and so on. Very different story is the legal framework. The legal framework is the glue, the legal glue between the participants in Switch AI. It regulates issues like data protection. Swiss data protection laws require that there is a legal basis for exchange of attributes between organizations, and the legal framework just provides this legal basis. In this framework, we have a service agreement between each organization that is participating and Switch, which has a role as an AI service provider here. So this, let's say, star between Switch and all the organizations makes up the whole legal framework, and it's still scalable. The other way might have been a bilateral agreement between each organization, which just would have been almost impossible to achieve. We also have an AI policy, and where certain rules are defined, how this should work, and the service agreement also binds the participating parties to the AI policy. In addition to that, the organizations should have text in their user regulations with the end users that regulate the data protection issues. So actually, that the user allows to transfer personal data for AI purposes to another organization. And finally, we provide a lot of central AI services at Switch to make this all come through. So, for instance, strategy and marketing is one of our tasks. And we also support the universities in AI enabling their user directories and resources. We do quite a lot of consulting. We also arrange trainings. And we configure and provide the federation-specific files. It's also called federation metadata. And according configuration guides for our Switch AI federation. And we operate a couple of servers, for instance, the Wave, but also test home organization, a test resource. We also develop or maintain and further develop some tools, for instance, the AI portal, which is based on a development from the University of Bern. Now it's open source, is on SourceForge even. And another tool, the AI proxy, which is based on work from our Spanish colleagues from Spanish NREN. And we also operate the virtual home organization, as mentioned before. Some further information. Of course, all our website is very interesting, but maybe these are some especially interesting links. So I suggest, for instance, the demo, which shows very clearly how Shibboleth works, what's going on. The pilot results report, which is a very readable summary of what has been achieved during the pilot phase. And the attribute specification, I think, is also a very good basis for future work. Okay, conclusions. So, as mentioned before, we are happy with our decision to go for Shibboleth so far. We had no noteworthy technical problems so far. That does not mean it's easy. There are lots of nitty-gritty details in Shibboleth, and to configure all the PKI stuff and so on. But as soon as it works, it just works fine. That's okay. But there are some non-technical issues. For instance, the data protection laws have to be fulfilled. And just as a summary, what is required to build an AI federation? It needs a lot of coordination and standardization across the universities. For instance, the attribute specification. It needs the legal framework. And it also needs a central motor to bring things forward, or a central promoter, if you would like. Okay, that's it. Thanks for your attention.
Well, it seems that all three speakers are so fast that we have around 20 minutes for questions. So, well, depending on you, if you have many of them, if you have something to say, some comments to make, or we can go on outside and take some fresh air. So, please, Sally. Can you, Sally, if you don't mind, could you take the...
Sally Chambers from the University of London. I was very interested in your AAI attribute specification, and you said you had a working group to put it together. Did you base it on any other ones, or have you looked at how that might apply to other national AAI specifications that are coming about at the moment?
Yeah, it's based actually on standards. So we took EduPerson as a first basis, and we've put on top of EduPerson some additional attributes which we thought were important and necessary for the Swiss community. And altogether it was named the Swiss EduPerson. And for certain attributes inside this construction, we had some other sources of standardization. For instance, the study branch is very interesting because typically it's very difficult to make sure that, for instance, physics here is the same as physics there, or maybe derivatives of physics. And we had very much luck or chance here because in Switzerland there exists already standardization of study branches. It's from the Office of Statistics, the federal office, and they collect data from the universities, and based on this data they also grant subsidies. So everybody has to fill it in and fill it in correctly, and they have to agree on a certain set of study branches, which in this case made it very, very easy. Big luck, but of course if that's going outside of Switzerland, it's getting difficult again.
First, Torbjörn.
Have you defined the branch as one part of your EduPerson class, or is it in a separate class, the things that has to do with the studies? I mean, the EduPerson is just more kind of raw person information.
If I understood you correctly, you're asking if the study branch is part of the Swiss EduPerson? Yeah, okay. I don't know that, really, because it was Thomas Lenkenhager who was the chair of this working group. And I think, I don't know. Yeah. It is. It is. Okay, thanks. It is.
Please.
You raised a very important issue in this opportunity to make sure that federations are set up in similar fashions in the R&E community. And I wanted people to know that we're all very concerned about that there's a meeting coming up later this year that Switch and others are invited to, where we'll sit down, go through a number of the policies, many modeled on the excellent work that you've done, and begin to compare them. And already this morning in a conversation, these issues about EU data privacy laws, the U.S. safe harbor laws, all suggest that we're going to have to pay a lot of attention to how attributes are being passed. And so the bad news is that there's lots of politics. The good news is that we've started to work on them.
Yeah, sure. It is, I think, already difficult to build up a federation within Switzerland. And I think it's a bit more difficult to extend that federation to other European countries, but still it is all below this EU data protection laws, and they're very similar to the Swiss data protection laws, which makes it easier. But as soon as attributes are passing the Atlantic, I think it's getting much more difficult even.
Anything else?
Hello. I was just wondering whether you could give an estimate about how many organizations or even people are involved, because it seems a very demanding project in terms of coordination. And you also mentioned there's several parties integrated in the development part. So is there an estimate?
I think I didn't really check the question. Can you repeat?
I was wondering, so how many organizations and parties are involved in the actual finding of a solution and then in developing the framework?
Well, as I said, there are about 12 universities in Switzerland, and I think most of them have participated in this inter-university working group. Of course, it was optional to participate, but the call was to almost everybody. And from universities, I would say maybe it was 5 or 7 participants from the universities, and from Switch, maybe 2 or 3 persons per working group. And there were several working groups. And so altogether, we also have lists of all the people who have contributed so far to the whole project. And that's quite impressive. It's about 70 names from a lot of organizations throughout Switzerland. And I would say that all major universities have at least one person delegated once for such a working group or another activity. And within Switch, our team is 3 people currently, but we plan to expand. So that's about the numbers. Okay.
Can CERN join your federation? And if so, do you think they will?
That's a very interesting question, because yes, that's exactly the problem. Of course, I mean, such a federation basically wants to cover a group of people who work together or exchange information. And I think the collection of the Swiss universities is such a group, of course. And CERN, I think, has a lot of connections, not so much to the Swiss universities, but just outside. And so at the moment, yes, they were participating, for instance, in the Certificate Authority Task Force, which was also a task force under the umbrella of AI. But they're not so far participating in Switch AI. But I mean, this is the first step. We now do the federation in Switzerland because it's just doable. But we have in mind, of course, to also include on the longer term or to cooperate and exchange data with other federations.
You have presented your system, so it seems to look very well and work like the Swiss watch. But I have a question. Between Switch and organizations, you have signed special service agreements. According to federal and county law, the service agreements differ very much?
No, it's the same for all.
Thank you.
The data protection laws are, well, federal, and there are some cantonal laws who are even stronger from point of view of data protection, but the service agreement is the same.
I noticed in the attribute specification again that you had a line for staff. In my university, the staff and the staff are causing more problems in AAI terms, and I just wondered how you got on with staff in Switch.
That is really an issue. I mean, staff. We have a staff category, in addition, which allows a distinction. But we had also requests from the universities that, for instance, they wanted to have additional information to which department a certain staff was belonging. And currently we are not able to provide this data. It's not included in the attribute specification. But this may be not the last, or certainly is not the last version of the attribute specification. So it's foreseen that we do a version 2 or a version 3 later. So maybe in about every year we will have to include new attributes into this specification or change attribute specification.
One more small question. Are you also planning to integrate the usually named third A, which would be accounting, if only for statistical reasons? Are there plans to do some accounting modules?
Mm-hmm. There are plans to do it. Again, for simplicity, we just choose to exclude accounting for the moment. But we plan in the next year, we plan to do a study how the third A could be included into the system. But that's again a very, very difficult task, and we didn't want to overload everything at the beginning.
Just to make a short note of that, on Sunday during the chief phase meeting we were discussing about normalization of statistics and logs in the different pieces of middleware, precisely with the idea of normalizing the way in which you can access the information produced by different pieces of middleware as they are used in place. So you can have real statistics or real logs, real accounting, whatever you call it, or real diagnostics, or what you are playing with in the middleware arena. But it's something a little bit tricky, I guess. So it's something that we have to deal with.
Just to comment on the well, first on the staff issue. By way of anecdote, we at my university looked recently at the information coming in from our human resources system about faculty, and there were about 8,000 regular faculty members and about 8,000 of the so-called courtesy faculty members who are there just so they can get services and aren't actually employees. So an example of the kind of problem. Regarding, I think the question about, where do the attributes come from and how do we know if we're when we need to make up new ones and which are the right ones? There has been some work called International Eduperson that has been going on for a while, but I think has terminated unsuccessfully, more or less, I think because it was being conducted by the directory technical people who didn't really have that much interest in the content necessarily. So I would encourage folks to who are interested in that to check into that. I can certainly give more information, and it may be that we need to revive that effort, which was sort of a effort between the Internet 2 MACE group and a number of particular European players with some different folks, and maybe make some better progress on that.
In fact, following up on that thought, maybe a case like CERN or some international collaboration would provide us, scenarios to bring out those attributes that are important to include in an edu-person definition. They would support that.
You mean the kind of laboratories like CERN to use them as a source of the attributes?
Or to look at a collaboration like that to understand what attributes are needed to support.
I would say it's more a matter of big transnational effort like EG or something like that. Because CERN is international, but it's I beg the pardon of anybody of CERN who is here, but CERN is more an international funded laboratory, more than a real international running projects inside there. But they are participating in a very big international experiments, like all the LHE and the EG and the coming there. Good.
Well, I was thinking of their participants at different universities, and so take several cases that probably have different.
Yep. Anybody? Well, we have taken advantage of 17 of the 20 minutes, so we have done very well. So thank you, Wally, thank you to all.